There are growing calls tonight for the resignation of Virginia's Democratic governor after a deeply offensive racist yearbook photo came to light. The photograph printed in Ralph Northam's medical school yearbook showed two people standing side by side, one wearing blackface, one wearing a KKK hood and robe. Northam has confirmed he is in that photo, although he did not specify which one is him. Tonight, the NAACP and MoveOn.org, the head of Priorities USA, and presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Julian Castro are all saying Northam should step down. The Virginia House Democratic Caucus just scheduled a conference call to discuss the governor's racist yearbook photo at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight. Just moments ago, the governor himself released this video on Twitter.
My fellow Virginians, earlier today, I released a statement apologizing for behavior in my past that falls far short of the standard you set for me when you elected me to be your governor. I believe you deserve to hear directly from me. That photo and the racist and offensive attitudes it represents does not reflect that person I am today or the way that I have conducted myself as a soldier, a doctor, and a public servant. I am deeply sorry. I cannot change the decisions I made, nor can I undo the harm my behavior caused then and today. But I accept responsibility for my past actions, and I am ready to do the hard work of regaining your trust. I have spent the past year as your governor fighting for a Virginia that works better for all people. I am committed to continuing that fight through the remainder of my term and living up to the expectations you set for me when you elected me to serve. Thank you.
I'm joined tonight by Democratic Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey, who will take over as head of the Democratic Governors Association in 2020. Governor, it's good to have you here.
Nice to be here, Chris.
You just had a big policy win in your state on the minimum wage, which I want to talk about.
Yeah.
You have a home state senator who's running for office, which I also want to talk about.
Absolutely.
But you are sitting here where a fellow governor, as this has just happened.
Yep.
Do you think the governor of Virginia should resign?
Chris, first of all, let's say that unacceptable behavior in 2019, and it was just as unacceptable in 1984, number one. Number two, we're the party of Barack Obama. We're the party of inclusion. We've got a president who wants to divide us. I'm a former member of the National Board of the NAACP. The Ku Klux Klan is a terrorist organization. I don't see that the governor's got any other choice other than to step aside.
You think he does have to step aside?
I think he does. I say with a heavy heart, because I know him and I believe he's a good man. But this is, as you said earlier, it's disqualifying, particularly at this moment in time and with the division in this country. Charlottesville, all that we've had to go through the past couple of years.
I should say that you're saying that in your personal,
I am.
Not as the incoming head of the DGA or vice chair as you are.
That is correct.
Now, well, that's interesting. I'm glad you answered that straightforwardly. Let me ask you about Cory Booker, who is running for president, who this is notable. Immediately after his announcement, you put out a statement endorsing him. Yep. Bob Menendez put out a statement endorsing him. Why was that such an easy call for you?
I've known him a long time. First of all, I love him. And it's kind of, I've got two speak out of both sides of my mouth. I've known him since he was a member of City Council in Newark. I think he's a great leader. He's a guy who stands for that inclusion we spoke about a minute ago. He really genuinely lives to bring us together. I know his work in Newark. I know his work as a U.S. Senator, as a city councilman before. But I also have to say, if I was from the middle of nowhere, if I was from some other state, I'd say the same thing. So I happen to know his work. I know it intimately. I know him personally for a long time. But I'm a huge fan, and I would be if I were from somewhere other than New Jersey.
You are going to sign, I believe, on Monday, a minimum wage increase in your state. It's going to bring the minimum wage up to $15 eventually?
Yes.
How long is the phase-in?
It's going to begin in July. We'll go to $10 in July. It's right now $8.85. We'll go to $11 on January 1st, and each January 1st until we get there on January 1st, 2024. For most workers, $15 an hour.
So most workers, 2024, $15 an hour. How hard a political fight was that?
It was hard. At times frustrating, but we got there. And it's a game changer. You know, I grew up working poor, so my aspirational life was to get into the middle class. New Jersey's the quintessential middle class state. But right now, if you're a two-income household with two dependents, you're dramatically below the poverty line. This will be a game changer. And by the way, $15 is not nirvana either.
Right.
But it's a great first totem to get to.
How much opposition did this how much opposition do you get from business groups, from independent businesses, small businesses, things like that?
Low margin retailers, restaurants, small businesses gave us a fair amount of pushback. I think importantly, it's a responsible phase in, and we did that deliberately. We took in and understood some of their concerns, but there's a lot of myths around minimum wage, and the other places that have started on that path to $15 have proved that.
I'm curious about that. You know, Seattle was the first city out there,
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken. I think actually the part around the airport started, and then
That sounds right.
the city itself. How much does those experiments matter when you're trying to make the case that you can point to actual things that happened on the ground?
It matters because the other side, the opposition to raising minimum wage, will throw out things like your unemployment rate's going to go up. It affects mostly teenagers. It's really evenly split between men and women. It doesn't disproportionately impact communities of color. All of that is false. It's overwhelmingly folks who are over 20 years old, most with college degrees. In New Jersey alone, it impacts 1 million workers and 500,000 kids. It disproportionately will benefit communities of color and women. So to have the evidence out there is a nice weapon for us to be able to use.
You're a former Wall Street guy.
I am recovering.
You're a Wall Street guy. You're a Democratic governor now. You've got unified Democratic control in New Jersey and an ambitious agenda. How do you think about your time in Wall Street? What you learned there? Where the Democratic Party is at right now?
I think the most important chapter for me was growing up with nothing. So I'm a Kennedy Democrat. I was born in Boston. I worked as a banker around the world. So I've got a perspective not just from the U.S. piece, but living and working in Europe and in Asia. I've seen the good and the bad. I learned how to manage big organizations, and that certainly helps me as a governor. But I've learned that while capitalism is still, in my humble opinion, the right model, it's got problems. We have to temper it. We have to manage it aggressively, and if we don't, it creates too many inequities. In New Jersey, the New Jersey I inherited had those inequities.
All right, Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey, thank you so much for your time.
Nice to be here,
and
Chris.
for your candidness. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.